Hi, I'm John, founder of Essence, facilitator, musician, podcaster, and author of children's books. I guide people towards living their essence through one-on-one coaching journeys, group coaching programs, and many free offerings such as this podcast. If you want to go on a deep dive towards living your essence, I invite you to go to my website and book a free discovery call. And then we can explore many ways how you can live your unique essence. And now, let's jump straight into today's podcast episode.
If I can be my essence, that's enough. And up until this moment, there was a shame in being my essence because I thought it's some part of me that's not enough. It's not good. And now it's like, no, I know it is. I know being me is enough. Well, what something changed because I've had the thought, but this seeing, both really embracing the shame and the unworthiness allowed me to be willing to reveal whatever is true for me. So by doing this whole deep dive, I got to this really transformative experiences and practices that have come out of it. It's still an ongoing, strengthening new habits, but it absolutely was transformative for me.
Welcome everyone to today's episode of Essence. I have the incredible honor to have with me John Kinyon. John has been an internationally renowned leader of nonviolent communication for over 25 years. He also mentored closely with nonviolent communication creator Marshall Rosenberg and was one of his most trusted students. He has been training, mediating, and coaching thousands and thousands of people and communities across the globe. And throughout the last decade, he has been integrating mindfulness and trauma healing work into his Mediate Your Life approach. In today's episode, we will be talking about how conflict is an opportunity for healing, how authenticity and healing are connected. And John will also share a very personal experience of how he met within himself a part that was deeply ashamed and how he moved through it. So this episode is really special and I hope you enjoy.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here too.
And as always, in the beginning of these podcast episodes, I invite every guest to connect with the last time that he or she was felt connected to the essence. And I did that the same thing also with John. So I haven't heard it yet, and I'm really curious if you want to take us to this moment, the last time that you felt your essence. When was it, and what were you experiencing in this moment?
Yeah, so the first, when you asked me before we started to think of what came to me at a conversation yesterday evening with this close friend and colleague, and in the conversation, I really felt this. We talk regularly every week, but I really felt in this flow of the conversation that was really, I felt moved by what we were talking about, what I was talking about. So there was a certain kind of articulation that was flowing through me, which I could share more about. So that's what came. Every morning I have like a meditation contemplation time, and this is my morning right now. And so, but so that's always kind of a place for me. But really what the first thought that came was this conversation last night with this friend and colleague. So that's the one I'll go with. And you want me to just keep going, or is there anything specific you want to ask me about that?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I find it always so interesting because this question of what is one's essence can be so vague and broad. So I'd like to know, like, what you felt inside your body in this moment. Like, how do you know, right? How do you know that you're connected with your essence?
Yeah. So what feeling, it's still there when I think of that conversation, especially like certain parts of the conversation, but it's a feeling of, it's hard to find words, isn't it? But that I there was a kind of energy of there's a strength of energy that felt like me, like it was like something about my way of being alive and on this planet and what I'm here to do. And I was like that. So, but the feeling was a kind of excitement, but it was almost, it was sort of quiet and yet intense and strong at the same time. This sense of like a being in the flow of a river that was just kind of something kind of coursing through me. So this almost electric, maybe that's where this is popping into my mind. There was a kind of electric energy of there was a sense of truth, a truthfulness. Like I was speaking something that was really true about my essence, about me, about what I care about what I'm passionate about. And so yeah, that feeling of energy in a way of that was very, very warm and pleasant, very um I felt really connected to this person I was talking to, but beyond that, just that sense of being connected to everything. So those are some of the words trying to put to it.
Thank you so much for taking all of us into this moment. I can feel it. I can feel like this electric vibe in the air and this aliveness. And you were speaking about that you felt connected to your passion and purpose. And what is it like for everyone listening? What is it that you're currently passionate about?
Well, we were talking about the state of the world, which I like to think about a lot and focus on not just the internal interpersonal level of things, but the macro level as well, socially, politically, environmentally, just how all those really kind of meta level events impact us as individuals, and sort of talking about uh, as things maybe get more and more difficult and challenging, the crises of the world getting stronger. And I was talking about this image that was coming to me of yeah, we were particularly talking about like here in the United States, there's the politics is what's it's all over now, but it's but here in the US, it's particularly polarized and seeming like almost getting to the absurd of certain things that are happening at this point. But we were sort of talking about like Donald Trump is about to be inaugurated into coming back into the office of presidency and um and just like what's going to happen, how what's life going to be like as these kind of changes they've already started even before leading once he got elected and even the last number of years and all. But I was talking about um that the sense of, well, there's a number of things that could take a little bit to unpack with you, but one of the pieces of it was this vision that I have of almost like two, like the people that uh I think of, like I imagine you and me and what we're dedicating our life to, that has to do with really experiencing the unity of our humanity, of all, and connection with all life of this planet, and how to serve that life, how to be caring and loving for and honoring of life. And so like kind of being in that place, right, kind of having the, and being from that place, being able to hold like um seeming paradoxes or contradiction or opposing ideas, and just being able, and that's a lot of my work with conflict, is like how do we hold those conflicting perspectives and ideas. And but people that are drawn to that sense that yeah, there is a way to relate as individuals instead of group identities and polarized tribal kind of conflict, and more like how do we work with the challenges, but in a way that's sort of open and embracing and looking at diversity in a kind of healing and holistic way. Yeah. So, and then there are folks that are not in that place, to varying degrees, that in a more maybe competitive or warlike or dominating or even certain ways of resisting domination and oppression, but kind of caught in this us and them and the fighting against the other that is kind of somehow the enemy and all that, right? And but also the maybe the addictions to a certain kind of power and wealth and without caring about the whole. Yeah. So I just said that there are kind of folks that are going more and more in either of those directions, and there's a lot of gray area in between, but kind of generally, right? And the vision I am having is like that those of us that are really drawn to this sort of universal embrace of each other, and still within that, not cooperating with things that we think are destructive, and how do we keep trying to create better and better things, but we'll come, I have the sense we'll come more and more together in community. And it's been happening for a long time, but I feel like there's this acceleration, especially through technology and maybe just the evolution of our consciousness, of all the people around the world and you and me and having this conversation. We're like part of that, like the networking, the coming together of these individuals all over who have this kind of common vision of our underlying um, oneness and unity, even though and honoring our individuality and different, uniqueness. So I just feel like that's just gonna rise up so strong and so fast. But at the same time, those that are kind of in a different mindset, that also is rising and getting more intense and destructive and oppressive in certain ways. And so it's a scary time. But this optimism, like that throughout life on this planet and even in the universe, life continues to evolve and actually get better and better in various ways, despite how challenging things can be. And even now, right? So challenging and so frightening in a lot of ways. And yet I have it makes me so happy to think of that there's a way to respond and to be in like the beloved, what is it called, beloved community, I guess, is, and just that can grow and grow, and as a way to respond to what's happening. So that's a few of the ideas that I was talking about with this friend, and the way that was just flowing through me as we were talking, and it seems so true. Like that is as a vision that inspires me and gives me hope and optimism, and fills me with a kind of joy, even though I'm at the same time very, very, much looking at how sort of overwhelmingly difficult the circumstances are already. And like here in the California, these fires are raging. So whenever people are listening to this, right now, in Los Angeles area of California, Southern California, this is incredible, like more and the biggest in history of the state of fires that are just devouring down there. And it's climate change, and it's all kinds of changes that are happening that are devastating, and it's just gonna get more and more for a while, right? So anyways, how do we respond to that? That's what I think about all the time, and try to be part of.
If you're enjoying this podcast, I invite you to click follow. Your single click can contribute to inspiring more and more people. I also invite you to go to my website and download my free 9 Ways to Live Your Essence guide. All the information you find in the description. So now let's continue with today's episode. Oh, beautiful. Thank you, John, for sharing this. I feel deeply your passion in this. I feel this optimism, this longing to act and to change something and to cooperate and to see yourself and us as part of something larger. Some a larger organism that needs to collaborate in order to meet these and hold these contradictions at the same time while staying anchored in this sense of truth that you also described in the very beginning. And I was wondering, like in all these changes and transformations and all these conflicts and contradictions, how do you stay connected to this vision, to your inner truth, to your passion? How do you do that?
Ah, I have so much to say about that. So hopefully I
Go for it.
can not try to say all too much all at once, but I'll try to unpack it slowly with you. There's a so I've been involved with nonviolent communication for about 25 years. Uh, and for my own work that combines nonviolent communication with mediating conflict and like mindfulness and consciousness work, that for about over 20 years, Mediate Your Life is the name of my work. And at the center of that, there's an image that for me really captures the heart of the work, the essence of it, which is, so in mediation there are three chairs. There's the chairs that represent any two sides of conflict, including internal conflict, the two sides, and then a third side that is holding this kind of unity perspective, this ability to empathize and hold the complexity, the duality, the polarity. And that three chairs for me really, it creates this triangle. And so the image of a triangle, and um, and then around the outside of the triangle is a circle that, to me, it that creates this image, overall creates a compass. And around the circle is the four basic components of nonviolent communication: observation, feeling, need, and request. And that those are like that in this image, this metaphor in ways, it's those are the compass points. And so instead of north and south and east and west, it's these four basic components of not just communication for me, but they're like levels of human experience, of how we, like almost like dimensions of experience, what we can observe, what we feel in our bodies, the needs that connect us to the universal kind of interconnectedness of everything, and then request that is about a kind of loving action that we can take from being connected to that deep universal place. So that image, and so it's a compass, like a compass. And my work is also about navigating these territories of different kinds of conflict. But this image to me symbolizes that, holding the triangle that holds the duality and the unity of life in one, that's one, that in our differences and individuality, there's always that underlying, we're all part of a larger whole. um, we're all created out of the same energy that we're different forms of, yeah. And yet that energy, that oneness, is always in us as individual beings. And that, holding that together, I feel it's so powerful that we can both really honor how we're unique and different, and we can also feel that we're part of the same wholeness. And that, now I lost track of your initial question, but that to me is like, as what I practice every day, um, is remembering that, and then using those four components, and in that circle that goes around of the compass. To me, that's a universal arc, like a journey. The hero or heroine's journey is to kind of go down from what we're experiencing down into the depths of our bodies, and what's difficult and painful, and all the what's so hard in our in life, and we go through that down into what's universal, to the needs, and to that sense of opening into how we're all essentially the, part of the same life, that kind of grounds and heals and connects. And then we go back up the other side into this action that comes from love and empower and kind of uplifting energy. So that it's a guiding a way, just even through an image that reminds me of that journey. And even what you and I did a little breath work at the beginning, just every breath is that kind of a breath that goes down and then up and then down. And so whether it's one breath or it's a day, a week, a month, a year, a lifetime of making that journey, down and then up, and that it's ultimately in the center of that image is this triangle that to me represents the duality of our differences being held in a unitive way, and they always go together, the unity and the duality. So that's my practice to kind of keep reminding myself of that and bring that into my own difficulties and healing of my own, you know, challenges that I carry and how to help other people. So I feel like as a guide, I think of myself more than anything as like I love being a guide, that we go through these journeys into these difficult territories of conflict, and like just going up the mountain together. But this compass, this really is a touchstone for me that sort of it captures the essence of my work, of what um, how I want to contribute to this world. So a lot in there. I don't know
find
what
it
you want to
beautiful.
do with all that,
I
but
I find it really, really beautiful. And what I love about it is also the simplicity of the framework, of the approach. And what I love so much that you were sharing your own personal practice, how that connects to your contribution to the world, to how you want to see the world, how you want to see other people come together with this consciousness, awareness that we can be ourselves and part of something bigger. We are individuals and embedded in a wider frame and network. And how you were sharing that every morning or every day you get connect with yourself and remind yourself of this, that all of this can exist at the same time.
yeah.
And that it's not just about mediating the conflict somewhere out there, but it's also internally that we can face these conflicts. And we have a mediator, the third chair, that can observe and hold both. And I was wondering now if when meeting others that might see the world as driven by competition, one against the other, win or lose, how do you invite others into this state of seeing the world, into this consciousness? How do you do that?
Wow, that's such a big question. How do I do that? Yeah. Well, I said that there's a way that works. It's taken a long time to figure out my essence and to trust it. I think others have seen it much more than I have, but it's that when I'm with people. So I think of my work as both for each of us as individuals to be on this journey, navigating the challenges we face and how to do that, but also, yeah, to be able to help other people, to be a guide, to be like a walking the path together, and sort of having dedicated my life to understanding some of that landscape, and seascape to get through those really difficult places to the other side, where things open into new possibilities and deepening of connection, and and healing. So that word healing has become more and more important to me. I think it's always been kind of part of the essence of how I am with people. I'm really liking to go into the that I see conflict brings up a lot of the pain that we carry. It's the differences where we get stuck, but also the deeper pain that's part of conflict, the hurt, the woundedness, right, the traumas, and to bring healing into that, so that conflict is an opportunity to heal. And that's hard to remember when we're in it, because we want to we want to get away from it, or we want to just fight the whoever we see, or fight with ourselves or something. But even trying to remember, like, yeah, there's something that this situation, whatever it is bringing up, that there's a healing that can happen. And for me, healing just means we finding that wholeness again, that we're when we experience emotional pain or things that have that impact on us, things get kind of frozen and cut off and separated, and in a divide, where internally or externally, right? So that the healing means, I think it's that reconnecting to the larger fabric, so of within ourself and others in the world. So that's a big part of how I love to be with people, just to bring that. It's not just empathy, it's like empathy plus this warm, inviting, loving kind of quality of presence that invites people to drop down from their perceptions and thoughts about whatever's happening down into their bodies, and all that's, so like we carry all that pain inside and tension of conflict, and then to just keep traveling down into the place ultimately where it's like, oh, we all share these same needs, we all are part of this one, you know, existence. And then finding what's the what action can come. But there's something about just that orienting to people as like walking together. There's something about accompaniment, and I'm a big fan of Sarah Payton's work. Sarah is a an NVC trainer, but she's also really dedicated her life to trauma healing and neuroscience and um, those kind of those fields. And so she uses this term, or I learned it from her, of accompaniment. And so accompanying uh, another person in this case, or even in a conflict between more than one person, right? I mediate a lot between it, but I think of it now as I'm accompanying each person and how they can try to ultimately reach towards each other. But that being willing to go there with them. And it means being able to go into my most painful places, which I've been doing for a long time. And more recently, I could tell you a bit of a personal story of some deeper healing work that I've done more recently. But it's this, to me, it's like and it's almost like a cliche, but now I really get it in such a deep way of what it means for me to be willing to go to those places inside myself in order to accompany other people there. And the blocks I have in me block me from being where I can accompany other people. And it's an ongoing thing, right? It feels endless, how deep those kind of fractures and fragmentations inside us go. But yeah, just answering your question about how to be with other people, that's ultimately, I mean, there's a lot of kind of skill and technique and, frameworks and all that, but just to answer your question in a kind of simple way, that's how I think about it. And that, I feel, that's the healing that in any modality, it's that kind of accompaniment with empathy and love, loving attention, loving, receptive resonance and care, right? And then that just melts and softens into this connection again. We're connected again. We're not cut off and isolated. And yeah, so let me stop there and see what comes for you.
I would love for everyone on this planet just to listen to these last couple of minutes and really let it sink in. I was imagining, how could people in this world meet themselves and one another if this idea, if this concept, if this way of seeing the world really landed? And I totally resonate with what you were sharing about, I can only go with you to this place if I know it inside of myself. The resonance in these, if we would go diving, I can only dive with you down here if I can dive down there. We need to meet in the same place, and uh, I resonate with. I, as a guide, need to do my inner work to meet other people in these places and sharing resonance and opening spaces and meeting in this warmth. So I find it so the way you shared it, I found it so beautiful, and saying that what is healing, coming whole, reconnecting with these different parts. And yeah, now I'm so curious because you left me with this cliffhanger of maybe you want to share something that you've been exploring for yourself recently. If you still want to share that, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the stimulus for it was this event that I presented something for from my work, and afterwards I got some feedback that was really sort of shocking to me. It just totally surprised me, and it was really um, there was a harshness to it and and an intensity of it that really just went way down into a place that I was like, okay, there's something really deep here for me to work with, and I just used this opportunity of on one level, it was just like, yeah, we're out in the world, we're doing things. Sometimes we get stronger, harsher feedback or whatever. But this was like one of the more difficult, uh, just because it was so surprising. I was not expecting it in any way, and it was like really, really intense. So I used one of the processes of my framework approach, which is about receiving difficult feedback. And but what I did with that is I ended up going back to because what came up was intense shame. And I've been aware of shame for actually there's a long time when I didn't really relate to that word. I was like, yeah, other people feel shame. I don't really feel shame that much. And unworthiness was kind of, yeah, or low self-esteem or those kind of I'm like, yeah, it doesn't really apply to me so much, yeah, maybe a little bit, but right. But I in this experience, it and maybe because of where I'm in my life and the work I've done up to this point, but I was just really like, wow, I'm really feeling a lot of shame about this. It's like bringing up so much. And so I went to the source. I ended up actually just synchronistically, there was a family friend visiting over the holidays, and she does a certain kind of healing modality, healing therapy. She's a therapist, and EMDR is the approach. And I've known about that. It's a eye movement desensitization process, been around for a long time. I've known about it for a long time. I've never thought of doing it for myself. I've just never been drawn to it at all. Uh, but I've known about it. And anyway, so this, because it was a family friend that is a therapist in this, I did a session with her. Um, and I used it to go back into my early childhood where um, my mother took her life, committed suicide when I was 5. And before that, there were a few years of things that happened that were difficult, very, very difficult, and then her taking her life. And there's a certain story that I had in my mind about that. And as when you're a young kid, and it's incredibly common. I think it's almost like that's just what happens is you think it's your fault as a kid. You just, oh, if something really bad, it's me. It's like something wrong with me. So this shame, this intense shame of like, I'm bad, that this happened because I'm bad and I wasn't good enough. And that's why all this happened, you know? So I went through this, particularly through this EMDR therapy. I went into this really a deeper place with that than I'd ever been before. And Yeah. But in a way that was sort of bringing this healing to it, of being able to um, accompany the parts of me that experienced that, and were so beyond overwhelmed with fear and grief and just the intensity of that whole experience. And so to be able to, um, with the help, actually with the help of this therapist too, that she accompanied me. She was amazing, and she just went there with me to be exploring the the story that I had, the narrative that I'd constructed as this young boy, um, um, and the this conflict I've experienced with myself through all these years. A part of me that wants to be really confident and self valuing and having all this, like, and then the part of me and parts of me that were just from this experience. No, I'm bad. I'm unworthy. I'm not good enough. And this all through my life, this inner friction between these parts, right? Uh, and but by going back into this experience, it opened up this possibility at this time in my life to reframe what happened and to be with the parts of me that experienced this in a different way. And then afterwards, it led to actually having a conversation with my dad and getting more information about what happened that I'd never gotten before. I've never asked certain questions, things I just took for granted or I didn't question. I started questioning, and then it helped me shift. Oh, it wasn't something wrong with me. Like, I knew it at one level, but it something opened in how I could just understand, well, what had happened in a different way, and I could process those feelings in a different way that I'd never been able to do before, to be with them. Yeah. So, and I'll just share one more thing that came out of this was this, yeah, really, really embracing the level of unworthiness that I felt that I distanced from. I'm like, oh no, like I'd kind of intellectualized a certain sense of myself. But I also knew I could get very, very, like, the shame could well up, and all kinds of anxiety and nervousness of not being enough comes up all the time. But there's this way that I couldn't embrace that. I was so ashamed of being ashamed. I had so much shame about my shame and my shame about my unworthiness. And so this just said, oh, of course I have that. And I needed that to survive, and that I could just accept and be okay with, yeah, I have a lot of shame. I have a lot of unworthiness. And that came because of this happened. And it's a natural thing. And that, but now I can really be truthful and authentic with whatever is going on in me, because that's a way to honor me, because I've spent much of my life trying to manage connections with people. Because as you can imagine, I'm terrified of losing connection the way I lost connection with my mom. And so, where I would compromise some authenticity in order to please, and a lot of people do this, right? We accommodate and we please people, and we try to be liked by people, and we try to maintain connection with people, and we sacrifice our authenticity in order to do that. And it makes perfect sense. It's a survival mechanism. But I realized in going through this recent journey, you know, d- deep down in that dive, the metaphor of the ocean used, really the deepest dive I'd done, that I saw down there in the dark, this light that came of, yeah, I can honor, by honoring the truth in me, whatever that truth is, however much shame I feel about it, or even honoring the shame, I can be authentic with that. I don't have to hide my authenticity. I can be willing to feel the shame, or allow it to be visible. As long as I'm being me, the essence we started with, this whole what you're doing, right? If I can be my essence, that's enough. And up until this moment, there was a shame in being my essence because I thought it's some part of me that's not enough. It's not good. And now it's like, no, I know it is. I know being me is enough. Well, what something changed because I've had the thought, but this seeing both really embracing the shame and the unworthiness allowed me to be like, it's fine, hard to find words, but that by by being willing to reveal whatever is true for me, however unworthy it seems, that's an honoring of the word. That's a way to honor worthiness in me by risking disconnection, willing for people to disconnect from me, willing for people to not like me. And that I was like, oh no, I can't, right? To like, no, that's a practice I can really do to, as long as I'm being authentic and truthful, right? If people disconnect, yeah, it's going to trigger all kinds of pain and fear and anxiety and shame, but that's okay because by risking that, by being willing to reveal that truth, it's a healing every time. It's a healing thing. It's an honoring of me being me, and and so by doing this whole deep dive, I got to this really transformative experiences and practices that have come out of it. It's still an ongoing, strengthening new habits, but it absolutely was transformative for me. And I used this kind of conflict came up with this feedback I got as a way to an opportunity to do that. And if I feel like I have even way more capacity to be with other people, to go to even deeper parts of themselves, because I was willing to go into this territory that was just terrifying for me and didn't even know how to get there in some ways until this circumstance came up, and I was ready for it. So that's a little bit of trying to put words to what that was on my own journey of conflict and inner conflict as well as outer conflict, and then how that can open me to being able to be more present to accompany other people wherever they need to go.
Thank you for sharing this, for taking us all on this deep dive into yourself. And in me right now, I can feel it feels like my heart is also being stretched in this connecting with this depth, with this meeting oneself in such on such a raw, fragile, vulnerable level, being like, yes, I'm experiencing so much shame in myself right now. And yes, I'm running the story and it's alive right now. And the willingness to go there um, demands a lot of courage. So I really celebrate you that you went there, and also for sharing this experience with others, because I can imagine um, it can invite other people to hear from someone who has been mediating conflicts within himself and with others for so many years, for more than 2 decades, um, that it's not something that you complete and then you're done and you're like, ta-da, solved all the problems inside of me and in the world. It's this process of continuously meeting yourself, daring to go there, to become more and more whole. And I wanted to ask you again, you already shared it, and I found it so beautiful. I would love to hear it again in your words. The connection and relationship between um, authenticity and healing. Like, yeah, maybe in your words.
Can you frame the question, authenticity and healing? Yes. So in now having gone through this experience, when the fear comes up of being more honest or vulnerable or truthful about something, and that anxiety surges up and that sense of shame, and I can recognize it more as, oh, that's shame again. That's shame. That's that place, If I now, with enough awareness and, practice, that, like, okay, am I willing to share that truth, really? And all the people that I've most admired in my life, like, say, Gandhi, and he talked a lot about truth and his experiments with truth. And there's a way, like, I had a sense I wasn't totally getting what he was saying about that. And now I feel like I have a deeper understanding, like, what it means to honor the truth. Right? That word gets used a lot, right? And we're in a kind of time of human history where truth is really like and a lack of truth or confusion about truth. But anyways, a state my experience is, if I'm willing to have, as you said, the courage, if I'm willing to risk, if I'm willing to sort of walk through that fire of, and it feels like a fire of intense fear, um, and still be willing to stay with that truth somehow as best I can, the honoring of that in me feels healing. It heals. And I like to honor the part of me that doesn't want to do that, that's terrified. And it's like, I really want to try to stay compassionate and loving and caring to those parts of me that are terrified to do that. And at the same time, I want to continue to try to walk into that fear and be willing to be that truth. And then when I do that, I just feel like, because it honors that, the enoughness that I want to believe in. I want to believe that who I am, who you are, who we are, just by being an expression of this universal being that we each are a manifestation of, right? And there's I mean, this is also a cliche, but I love to think about it. There's never been, ever in the history of humans and life, anybody quite like me and quite like you and quite like any of us. We're all like, and to honor that, to honor the enoughness of that, to honor the worthiness of that, the beauty of each of us, our essence, again, coming back to your theme, right? I feel like that every time now that I can do that, it adds to that sense of healing. It's a way to keep healing and healing the part of me that doubts that has this story of unworthiness and badness. So I don't even have to completely get rid of that. I just, over time, it's just a continuing to embrace through courage. And there's something about, yeah, it's not just a change your thought. And right now it's a hard won kind of thing each time, to create that healing moment, and this combination of empathy and connection and care with the truth of expression, that then the healing feels like it just keeps deepening. And I just then that gives me a sense how I can be that for others, how I can support other people there, even at a nonverbal level, even at an unconscious level. It's just because my psyche is going there, I can sort of support other people's psyches to sort of be a space for that to happen. Yeah. So I don't know, how did I do? How was that for your question?
Beautiful. It enriched this question also so much, because I also find that there are certain words that are just being thrown around all the time. It's like truth and healing and authenticity. And it's like, what is this? And if we, I found it for myself that, this very simple exercise, this practice, when someone does a muscle test on you, and then you hold your hand in a certain way and they ask you yes or no. And then you say yes, and your arm is strong, push it down with the same strength. And then you say no, and your arm just goes down. And I've been thinking about this quite often and deeply in the last couple of days. because I thought, okay, you can muscle test and then you can find out certain allergies and something. But what that actually means is that if I don't live in integrity with my inner truth, I weaken my body. And I've been thinking about it. It's like, this is so true and so deep because it's so obvious. Like with the simple muscle test, it's not living your integrity. And we do
Literally,
that
you can feel that weakening.
literally weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been thinking, okay, how am I not living in integrity, not just in a simple yes, no, but in other ways of my life? And I'm just still with this question and I want to explore it more and more. And I really want to explore which kind of impact that has on health as well, not just for me, but for many others. If we don't live in integrity with ourselves, we are harming ourselves, and not just in a metaphysical strange concept, but just experience in that moment. So that's why I find it also interesting to hear that from you, this relationship of authenticity and healing or health or being whole and connected. Yeah.
Well, you're using the word integrity too. You're bringing, because all these words are sort of similar, related, yeah. But the way you brought that in a very concrete way too. So I feel like we're grounding these concepts in really kind of sort of visceral ways, right? So you just use the muscle testing example, right? And that sense, like how integrity literally means a certain kind of strength, right? The integrity of a building, say, or something, right? It's like there's a strength there, and how integrity relates to being willing to express, reveal the truth of our experience of what's actually true. And so then that this I've and as I have these kind of experiences, I continue to reflect back on
Mhm.
what I've learned from NBC, and particularly Marshall Rosenberg, who created Nonviolent Communication. And I spent a lot of time with Marshall for over a decade, and so he these kind of simple truths that he would often speak, and why people were so drawn to him, and he had this kind of presence of things he would, yeah, say and do and be, but this um honoring the aliveness. Marshall would sometimes, he would say things that scared the hell out of me. And I almost I couldn't even stay focused on it. Because he would say things like, um uh, uh if I find the right exact words. Well, the thing that people often would hear from him if they've read or listened, but very difficult to do. It sounds at one level kind of easy, but he'd say, "Don't do anything unless it's play. Don't do anything unless it's play." Oh, that's nice. That sounds nice, right? But if you really think about that, if you really, and then he would say things even more at times, not as often, but at times he'd say something like, "I'd be willing to eat food out of garbage cans rather than betray a certain," no, that it's a paraphrase, but he had something about this willingness to live this integrity, this truth, even if it meant eating out of garbage cans. And he did something similar in his own life, where he would tell this story about writing clinical reports when he was a psychologist, and at some point he just decided, "I hate writing these, I'm not going to do it anymore." But that meant that he wasn't going to be able to be a therapist anymore, because that was kind of required as part of his job. And so he left that job, and he ended up going on the road and doing what he did to develop nonviolent communication. But that and it for a while he barely made it. He was living out of his car, traveling around from place to place, literally living out of his car, and had very, very little money, and lived on the edge for a long time. But he was willing to walk that that path, right? And so, um, and the great ones, yeah, the Gandhis, the Kings, the Mandelas, the all the people in history, men and women through history who have been the most courageous this way, standing for the truth of treating each other justly and fairly, and our needs mattering equally. That I want to tie this back to this question of the truth and living the truth, that it's built right into to what drew me to this path is there is a aliveness that's in us moment to moment, and we can express it, we can listen for it in others, and then we can not do that too, because it's really scary, it's hard, there's a big cost maybe, and it and but to be a beacon of that, to be a you know willing to inspire ourselves and others with that, like that. But that's, I guess it's like I'm appreciating as I'm saying these words, like it's a really, it does take a lot of courage, tremendous courage, and I sometimes don't have it, and I succumb to the shame and the fear and the you know many times. But there's something about, as we're talking, right, that it's almost like an affirmation of what you talked about, that there's, it's connected to our health and to the health of society, right? Because as society, we're so mired in not lacking trust in each other, and the truth is becoming so scarce in a lot of ways, or confused. So there's that. I think what we're talking about just it goes so core to health as individuals, but health as society. And yeah, I don't want to get too philosophical. I want to stay with stay close in with your question about this path of honoring what's actually true in us. But I feel like it can take everything to be willing to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it fascinates me that you were speaking about Nelson Mandela and Gandhi and these others people, and I was thinking, yeah, it's true. I also admire them for their quality of courage and speaking their truth. And at the same time, I was connected with maybe a little bit of the sadness of, wow, we need to go back quite some decades to find one person, and then we go back two more decades to find another person. Um, and I know that there are many people in this world sharing their truth and walking this path. And I think I just hope that these inspirations also get seen and experienced and felt by others. I really hope that the world can experience this value of authenticity, the value that true connection to self can have. Um, Especially in this world where the truth is becoming more and more diluted, and the truth is becoming more of a marketing trick than anything else. So yeah, I deeply wish that people can experience what authenticity can actually mean for them, and that everyone finds his or her courage to walk this path and speak his or her truth.
So I'm really glad you said what you just said about these luminaries of history that really stand out in this way. And I as you spoke the words, I had this thought that came of, well, maybe we're in a time now, and it mirrors what some other things I've heard related to this, but where it's not so much about just these individuals that are so like exemplary, but it's more of us, actually. So it's not just the few people that stand out so brightly, but it's the story I want to tell about what's happening now is, yeah, there's all this, in a way, sort of the darkness of, where maybe there isn't the truth, and there's all kinds of harmful things we're doing to one another and the planet. But that at the same time, this growing, rapidly growing, how many people are doing what we're talking about in just as courageous way, just as powerful, like that and it's just under the surface, like how many people are doing that. Yeah. Or at least walking towards that, trying, just like you and me. And we're, as imperfectly and fallibly, but still with that vision. The optimism, I guess, is like that it's happening on such a mass level now. It's not about the great leaders doing it. It's about the people doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, there's a lot of people not, but there's more and more who are. And it's practice. It's not an all or nothing. It's not black or white. It's like, it's this ongoing, as we've been talking about, right? This continuing to kind of deepen and deepen down into it, and being on that kind of journey. But yeah, I don't know, that it feel again, circling all the way back to the beginning of our conversation, and this conversation I had with my close friend and colleague last night. What I was trying to articulate in that moment, I feel like we've kind of come back to, in a way, of this vision of how with all this, almost feels like a decay of unhealthiness in so many ways that we're experiencing, like a disillusion of basic values, good value, I don't know, so many things that feel like they're just kind of collapsing. But that sense that the individuals who are drawn to the things you and I are talking about are just growing, and we're finding each other. Yeah, we're finding each other, and we're coming together, and in that togetherness, we're individuals, but we're together, and we hold that universal embrace, even with the people who are doing the stuff we really find so abhorrent and hurtful and harmful. Even them holding, like, yeah, you're part of us too. We're all part of it. We're all this one life of this planet, even if you're doing these things, right? So I feel like we're finding each other, we're connecting with each other, we're knitting together in this more and more powerful way, because we can't do it ourselves. It's this, and we have the technology now, like you and I talking, and so many people can listen to this, and it's happening, in myriad ways every moment all over the world, and we are connecting to each other. We're creating this community that maybe, in a miraculous ways, will just, who knows, right? Who knows? But I I get the sadness. I often feel that sadness that you were, but I'm now continue to come. This image keeps coming to me of of what you and I are talking about here, and the way the way we're finding each other to come together. Yeah.
Beautiful. So I have this sense, being connected to this hope and what is happening in the world, that all of these us individuals are understanding now, as you were sharing, that we are part of a larger organism. And I think it's kind of this understanding. It's not just you and I or the others, and not a separation, but part, all of the same organism. And I think through this deeper connection and knowing that we are connected in a way, it's maybe not one Gandhi, but a bigger organism that's composed of many little elements that all can now strive towards a similar vision of the world or way of being. And I deeply, deeply feel that. Now, I've been living in Berlin for the last 7 years, and I've seen so many people starting projects in the world of like conscious communities or conscious projects. And throughout the entire world, more and more of these little pockets are popping up and, yeah, like sharing their contribution with the world and connecting to form this larger organism.
It's working with other pockets, and that it's like growing into it, like you're saying, like an organism, or um, a yeah, kind of some meta level of our of
Mhm.
love, of kind of that divine sacred communion, the communion of of all of us and all these pockets, and it's powerful. I think the energy of that is really powerful, even though, yeah,
Yeah.
the conditions we're in right now are very it seems impossibly difficult. It seems we're impossibly, close to the edge. And yet, when you just said about the pockets and those interconnections happening more and more and more, and that it's, yeah, it's beautiful. I love how you
Mm.
said it.
Yeah. I actually love how what you said, also this divine sacred communion. And I feel that now our entire conversation has really come full circle from the beginning of you sharing this experience that you had with a friend, through what is it actually that connects us? How can we find one another? How can we find the truth and authenticity within, um, the courage of doing it on, like within ourselves, meeting us within us to meet others, and then meet in this deeper connection. So I feel that, yeah, our conversation is now coming to a supernatural close, and I'm very grateful for this. And I just wanted to give you like another opportunity, if there's anything at this moment that you still want to share, where you feel, oh, I would love to say this, or that people know that. Now could be a good moment. And I think then we just like close it off naturally.
The only thing that comes is gratitude to you, that you are doing what you're doing uh, in this regard, and that you're having these kind of conversations with people, and just what all else that you are doing um, to support the kind of things we're talking about. I'm just in touch with a lot of gratitude to you, and for this conversation. This has been really, really nourishing to me to talk this way with you, and the questions you've asked, and felt like just that we could, yeah, just there's something about how you accompanied me and the places I went, and the space you held, and how, this is your mission to support what we're talking about. So I just grateful to you, grateful to be here having this conversation, and the kind of, and what we're talking about, that to me gives some optimism to how difficult things feel right now. Just so difficult for so many people, but I think there is a way to kind of legitimately focus on what can bring us a sense of connection and meaning and purpose, and even optimism of what's possible that seems impossible. So thank you for your part in that.
Thank you so much, John. And for everyone else, see you in the next episode of Essence.